Okay, so this is learning target number 4. Now the first thing that I'm going to show you, and I showed you this on the video last night, is this page right here. You'll remember it. It'll look very familiar here in a minute. Okay? Does this all look familiar?
Yep.
Okay. Now, this is it's a bar, but we call it a strip. Same difference. Okay? What do we know that the whole entire strip always represents? 100%. It represents the whole, the total. So, let's say that Caden had $60 at home. Could I make it to where this whole strip equals $60?
Yes.
Sure. If he had $1 at home, I could make the whole strip worth $1. So it can be anything. It's just about a whole. You guys see what I mean there?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's all about whole and part. Everything you're going to do in this with proportions, we're going to get to proportions next targets. It's always going to be this. This is called a percent proportion. Part over whole equals percent over 100. Everybody understand that?
Yep.
Okay. Because we know that aren't percentages all part to whole fractions or ratios? Yes. Yes. I mean, up 90%, that's part of it to the whole, which would be 100. Okay? All right. Now, the idea is to break your strip diagram, or your bar model, however you want to say it, but I'm going to call it a strip diagram. And you want to break it into evenly sized sections. So can I take this strip diagram and can I cut it like this?
No.
No, because that wouldn't give me an even amount of percents. It might give me decimal percents, but we don't want to mess with that, do we?
No.
So basically, there are only 1, 2, 3, 4 methods that you can cut a strip diagram up into. Now, technically, you can cut it into more than that. If I cut it into 10 sections of 10%, can I do that?
Yeah.
Can I cut it into 5 pieces of 20%?
Yes.
Yep. Can I cut it into 4 25% sections?
Yeah.
Can I cut it into 2 50s?
Yeah.
Okay, now those are the only ones you're going to use. Really, these 3 are the main ones. So this one, and this one. Those are the 3. This one even really isn't all that helpful. Okay? Could I also could I make a bar and actually cut it into 20 sections of 5%? Could I do that? Could I do it in 25 sections of 4%?
Yeah.
Could I do 100 sections of 1%?
Yeah.
Sure. But obviously, do you want to really have to do that? No, that's a pain. We're not going to mess with that. So this is the only way you're ever going to cut a strip diagram up. You're going to cut it into 50-50, 25-25, 25-25, 20-20, 20-20, 20% or 10% sections. Everybody cool with that?
Yeah.
All right. Now, going back to here now. We're going to read through here together. We're going to you guys you tell me if there's anything important that you think I should be underlining. The band has saved $4,500. You think that's important?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to underline it. Okay. So somebody tell me, what is 4,500 representing? No, hang on. Not necessarily true. I'm not looking for part or whole. It seemed like I was going to be asking for that, but I was more just asking that's representing the amount they saved. Do you guys agree with that?
Yeah. Yep.
So I'm going to write the word saved because that's how much the band is obviously saved. Does that say sand?
Yes.
I'm fairly sure I just said sand and not saved. Okay. All right. I don't know what happened there. Saved. Okay, so I just know that's how much they've saved. It doesn't mean it's the part, doesn't mean it's the whole. We'll get to that later. So that's how much they've saved for their upcoming field trip. This accounts for only 60% of the total cost. Do you guys think that's important?
Yeah.
Obviously. The percent's always important. Now it says, what is the total cost of the field trip? Do you think that's important?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so that's what I would call the real information. Right? So that's obviously important. That's the question it's asking. We want to somehow, from the strip diagram, we want to be able to figure out how much their trip costs in total. Now, what do I know about this trip diagram right away? What's the first thing that I should know about it right away? Yes? Wait a minute. No. Doesn't the whole strip represent 60%? Yeah? And then it's obviously going to represent some sort of total. We don't know, probably a total cost, right? Wouldn't you agree with that? If they had 100% of their trip, then they would have the whole thing, the total. So the whole cost of their trip is the total. Does everybody understand that? Okay. Now, what you always do after you kind of get this all set up and you've read through it and you've identified the important factors, the important pieces of information that you have, you're always going to identify what the percent is. That is 60%. Does everybody agree?
Yeah.
Okay. I need to ask myself now, I need to somehow cut this strip diagram up into one of these three right here, or those four I mean. I need to cut my strip diagram into one of those. So I need to figure out which one is going to allow me to be able to see, okay, it would be 2 pieces for 60%, or it would be 5 pieces for 60%. How do I want to cut my strip diagram up? What do you guys think? Yeah.
By 25%.
Okay, so Abid said 25%. So let's all think about it real quick. First of all, can I cut a strip diagram into 4 sections of 25%?
Yes.
Absolutely I can. Now, remember, the whole point of the strip diagram is for me to be able to look and be able to see exactly how many sections would represent 60%. So I see 20%, right? Or 25%? I see 25%. That's 50% combined, right? So where would 60% be? Right there? So can I do that? Would this be the most effective way to cut my strip diagram up then? No. No, I wouldn't want to cut my strip diagram in this case up by... Okay, what do you think would be better than cutting it by 25% sections? Steve-O?
20%.
Absolutely. So let's do that. 20% sections. And they're not perfectly even, but they're close enough. So that's going to be 20%, 20%, 20%, 20%, and 20%. Okay. Now, can I tell exactly where 60% is now?
Yeah.
So how many of those sections is 60%? Lucy? 3 of them, right? Okay. All right. Now, I'm going to go ahead and do this in a different color. So what percent do I not know? 40%. Okay. Here's my question that we're going to do into clickers. I want to know whether you think this, I think we would all agree that 4,500 is representing one of 3 things. It's either representing what's in green, or it's representing what's in blue, or it's representing the total. Okay? That's what I need, that's what I want you to do. So, if you think that $4,500 is representing what's in green, you're going to type A. If you think that 4,500 is representing what's in blue, you're going to put blue. If you thought it was the total, you're going to put letter C. Go ahead and do that now. Okay, so we got them in here. Let's see how we did. So we have, what is that, 12 or 11 up there?
11.
11 of you think it is the green section. We have some. So as you can see, it's pretty spread out. So, I'm not even going to put the right answer yet. Okay? Now, this is where we got to be really careful readers. Okay? It says the band has saved $4,500. Does everybody agree with that?
Yes.
That's the amount they saved. That's why we highlighted saved up there. Now, how much do they need? Well, what section would be representing how much they need? Wouldn't it be the blue section? Huh?
Yes.
So, look what it says. It says they've saved $4,500 for their field trip. This accounts for only 60% of the total cost. So, do they have the whole cost yet?
No.
So it can't be a whole. For those of you that put C, and there was quite a few of you that put C, that can't be right? Because they haven't saved enough. They have saved that much. That's only 60%. In order for their trip to be completely, entirely paid for, they have to have saved. They would have had to have saved 100%, right?
Yep.
Isn't 100% the amount that they've saved? Okay. So obviously it's not C. Now we know that they have saved 60%. So doesn't that 60% go with this amount here?
Yes.
Yes, it does. So therefore, the correct answer would be letter A. Okay? Obviously, it's going to be this amount because it says they've saved that. It is that amount. So wherever there's 60%, that would be your $4,500. You guys all understand that?
Yes.
We do not know this. This is what we need to know right here. If we can figure this out, then we can figure out this. which is ultimately what we're trying to figure out, right?
Yeah.
We are trying to figure out the total cost of the trip. So $4,500 plus whatever this is, isn't that going to be the total cost?
Yes.
Absolutely. So, think back to bar modeling from chapter 5. What was the whole goal behind a bar model? Who remembers me saying this? And I always did it in a certain color, I won't tell you. Who remembers what the whole point to doing a bar model was? Think back to proportion or to chapter 5. Wasn't it? Yeah.
How many, what's in each?
We need to figure out how much, in this case money, would be represented in one of these boxes. Do you guys understand that? You remember that?
Yes.
Remember how I did it in pink every time? I always did unit rates in pink, and this is kind of like a unit rate. Does everybody agree? How can I figure out how much money would be in each one of these boxes? How am I going to do that? It relates right back to chapter 5. Slammer?
Divide 4,500 by 3.
I'm going to divide 4,500 divided by 3 because I know that these 3 sections right here equals $4,500. And if I know that each section is equal, and I know they're equal because they're each 20%, right? I know it's going to be $1,500 in each one of these sections. Now, that's fine. 1,500 plus 1,500 plus 1,500, that's going to give me 4,500, right? Do I also know that these are 1,500 also?
Yes.
Absolutely. That's the whole point. Okay, that's the whole point to what I'm trying to accomplish here. Can I figure out the total cost of this trip? In other words, can I figure out what 100% of the trip was?
Yes. Yes.
So I can do it 2 ways. I could add the part that they need. They need $3,000, right, guys? If I know how much they need, if I know how much they have, and I add them together, would that give me $7,500? Okay? Okay, the other way you could do it is you could just do 1,500 times 5. Okay, everybody understanding this?
Yeah.
Now, real quick, I want to also show you the proportion. Okay, now remember that percent proportion that I showed you at the beginning of class? Does anybody remember what it was? Part over whole equals percent over.
100.
That's called a percent proportion. Now, it's a little bit different than the proportions you've done in the past. Because in the past, when you did a proportion, if you had money on top, money was on top. Minutes were on the bottom or whatever, right guys?
Yep.
This is different because now we have a percentage in here. So we're not even talking about real numbers anymore. These were all 4 of these were real numbers. Now we have a percent. So you can't have an actual amount percent. That doesn't make any sense. The actual real numbers are here. Okay? So, what's going to go right here in my percent proportion based on my question down here? Abida.
60.
Obviously, the percent's easy to identify, isn't it?
Yep.
Right? Now we know both these labels are going to be money and money, right? This one's going to be the part that they have. This is going to be the total cost. So what do we know? Do we know how much part of the part they have, or do we know how much the total cost is? Brennan?
Total cost. Oh no, how much money?
We know how much they've saved. Remember, this 60% is how much they've saved. We know that they have saved an actual real number amount of 4,500. We do not know this, which makes sense because we did not know this. Isn't that the same thing?
Yes.
Do you see how the proportion comes along on this?
Yes.
Okay, so then we would cross multiply and we would divide and we would still get 7,500. Everybody cool on that?
Yep. Yeah.
All right, let's do another. Okay? Now I'm going to try to erase this in a way to where we can still see the one up there because I'm going to relate back to it. Okay. Let's read through it. If the entire strip, well, first of all, what's the entire strip always represent?
100%.
100% always. It always represents 100%. That's the whole point to it. Okay? If the entire strip represents 60 students, do you think that's important?
Yeah.
Okay. So before I go on, up here, this 4,500, it only represented just a part of this strip, right, guys?
Yep.
Does 60 going to represent just part of it, or is it going to represent the whole thing? It's going to, yeah, it's because it says if the entire strip above, or it could be below represents 60 students. So do we know this? Hello?
Yeah.
We know that. We're good. We know that for a fact. That it says it right there. So we know if I'm starting to fill out my percent proportion here, I obviously know the percent, right, guys?
Yes.
Do I know the part or do I know the whole?
Whole.
I know the whole. So right there, you could solve it like that. But we're going to continue on with the strip. First of all, we always identify the percentage. The percentage. Because it's 60%, how do you guys think I should cut my strip diagram up? Steve-O, I should cut it into 20s. Could I also cut it into 10s, by the way?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sure. That would just be 6 sections would be 60%. Okay, so that's going to be 20%. Notice how I'm writing the percents in here every time. 20%. Okay? Now, this one's an easier one because it's easier when you know the whole, I think. Because then it's like, okay, all 5 of these sections represent 60 students, right?
Yep.
So how can I figure out how many students are in each section? Huh?
Multiply by.
No. Remember, our whole goal is to figure out how many people, or students in this case,
Divide.
would be represented in one rectangle, one piece of the strip. We would do 60, and we're going to divide it by 5, right, guys?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sections. Therefore, that's 12 students in each section. Okay? Everybody cool with that?
Yeah.
Now, answer the question. How many students would be included in 60%? So how many of these boxes do I need to count up? 1, 2, and 3. So, I'll ask you guys, how many students are represented right there in that strip right there? Bryce? 36. Do you guys see how I did that? If it wanted 80%, would I just highlight one more section? Right? If it was 20%, it would be 12 students. If this said 20 right here. If it said 40%, it would be how many students?
2 boxes.
2 boxes, which is how many students?
24.
24. Now, to go back down to our percent proportion. We knew the whole was 60. We knew the percent out of 100. If we crossed, multiplied, and divided, 60 times 60 is 3,600. Divided by 100 would be 36 students. Makes sense.
Yeah.
I have 36 students out of 60. That's 60%. So this is representing the part that we're talking about, and that 36 goes with the 60. Do you guys understand that?
Yes.
All right.